revolution is a tool, is a reality. Is 1 plus 1 is 2, but in politics, 1 plus 1 is 10, it's not 2. So they add 8 more. That's politics. Political revolution is not the same. That's the first thing. The second thing, I would like to answer my brother, Afro Burkina Faso. I know, I'm going to tell you a little story about this. What is the problem with this? After killing the revolution, after killing Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso, Blaise Compaoré, for him to stay in power, he killed all the witnesses. He killed 325 people. Because, we call this in French, témoignage, because they know a lot about the story, about how he came in power. That's the first thing. And the second thing, in 2005, I think it was the last election, presidential election in Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso was the only one country in West Africa having 45 political parties. So people don't believe. Small country like Burkina Faso, 45 political parties. Who is going to accuse it? Or who is going to listen? Or who is telling truth? Everybody want to use people.
Okay, coming in. My English is not right. But I just want to say something about the idea of political party. In Burkina Faso situation, it was not a mistake. Yeah, I said it was not a mistake for not having a political party, because at the beginning they create something they call CDR, Comité de Défense de la Révolution. This committee was organized at all the levels of the country. We have General Secretary of, so we have organization from the village. In all neighborhoods, you have a structure linked to the, connected with the top structure, in Ouagadougou. So we are not lacking of structure, the structure was there. And the first structure name was Comité de Défense de la Révolution. How to defend this newborn revolution. So that was the first goal. So for me, at this level, everything was okay. We already have an organization to take care of the idea of changing the country with Sankara. But the only problem came because of Blaise Compaoré. In fact, Blaise Compaoré is not a revolutionary. Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, they were friends, captain in the army. So they come together and they arrived there to the power, but there was a fundamental difference between Blaise Compaoré and Thomas Sankara.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Blaise Compaoré has never been a revolutionary.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. So, and you were referring to Norbert Zongo. Norbert Zongo said, according to the watching the power of Blaise Compaoré, that the problem will come the day something will come from the inside of the power. So when the problem, the problem came...
Kamini, your 2 minutes are over.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Thank you very much, Kamini.
That's one of my ideas.
Yes, a clock here. So when as soon as I saw the 2 minutes, I have to cut you off. Okay, Stephanie?
Okay, thank you. My question is for Dr. Harsh. So, when you observe the political landscape in Africa, there is a strong distrust between elder generations and newer generations. And there's a striking lack of political transition. But in the case of Burkina Faso, we saw how these young activists actually made a change that is still ongoing. My question to you is, do you know at this point if there is any research looking at the power of social media on what took place in Burkina Faso? The reason I'm asking is, the way it is so easier for young people to mobilize today, is there any research that's been done on sub-Saharan Africa on that? Thank you.
Okay, before one of my mentors, one of my professors, and he's still one of my professors, and he's one of my mentors, and he was teacher of Pan-Africanism at Howard University, Dr. Suleiman Nyang. He was one of the Dr. Nyang again, Dr. Nyang. So he was one. Dr. Nyang was the theoretical foundations. Right before you come here and talk to great PhDs and all the DDs and MDDs, right? And there was another one, late Dr. Langley was there, Dr. David and Dr. Cham, and then many other professors. They gave us the theoretical foundations. And Dr. Nyang has a class over there, African Political Thought, and in which it was talking about, what we're talking about, Sankara, Félix Houphouët-Boigny, Sékou Touré, and so on. So something is happening on the continent, and then in my closing, I will certainly come back to that. But now, before I come back to Papi and Paul, Ernest, you want to say something? Omari quickly, because there are two other people.
Question about the elders and social media.
Okay.
There is ongoing research among people who look at social movements in Africa on the role of social media, and it's very uneven. It depends on the extent of internet penetration. But even in countries where it's quite great, for example, studies of the Egyptian revolution and how the initial movement to overthrow Mubarak, there was a lot of emphasis in the media about the role of social media about it. But then you looked on the ground, you found that a lot of the demonstrations initially were organized by word of mouth. They knew the authorities were tracking Facebook. They put out false information on Facebook to have them send the riot troops to this place while they mobilized elsewhere. Burkina Faso in particular, it's quite limited. Belay Citoyen uses it a lot. Some of the activist groups do. But it's quite limited in terms of the population as a whole. So in terms of like the big demonstrations where they got up to 1 million people in October 2014, a lot of that would have been through normal organizational structures and word of mouth. Some of the calls went out. You could get information very quickly. It's cell phones, SMS, texts. That is an important role. But remember, social media, like any communications media, is a tool. It's just a tool. I mean, back before the days of the telegraph, the telegraph was, the get-all, as a way to communicate quickly. The key thing is how activists use it, the messages they get out, and how they organize with it. It's an important tool, but it still has some limitations, and I wouldn't deify the role of social media, because the other side can use them as well. One little reaction, you're from Belay Citoyen, right? Yeah, I just saw this interview with Sams Keleja, who makes the same point you do. He says he's not a Sankarist, he's a Sankarian. Because Sankarists are about politics.
Thank you.
I think what the trade unions are doing, what the youth movements are doing, those are politics in the real world. It's a different form of politics. And this is what people in Burkina think, that's narrowly defined with the political parties are running elections. I think it's a false impression. I hope we get to the point where people think that what Belay's doing is politics as well, because it is. You're changing stuff. That's politics on the ground. It's a different form of politics. It's not just gauging elections. So that's my one difference with Sampson. When I see him, hopefully in February, if he's not in Texas, I'll try to raise it with him.
Thank you. Edwin, Paul Sankara will be up before you, Papi, and there was another person there, and that's Daoud. Okay, so Paul, Papi, Shoktan, Daoud. Quickly, if you have any comments.
I just want to bring a comment and ask a question. Comment. 2-3 years before Thomas' assassination, the idea, the project of the creation of parties has been launched publicly. But the contradiction among the different leftist parties made that it was not possible. One. the shortest time in the power of 4 years is a key factor. Ivory Coast and Togo, that has been mentioned at that time, didn't want the process to succeed, including the relationship with what we call France-Afrique. So, question, how can we use the means, tools, competencies, skills to do something last year or in 2 years in Burkina Faso in order to revive the future of Thomas? How can we help them build something with all of us, what we have here, next year or in 2 years, to be concrete instead of, just having conversations. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Especially in West Africa, without addressing the survival of the French imperialism in West Africa. And on that question, really my suspicion is that the whole French imperial monster is licking its lips in West Africa, especially with its victory in Ivory Coast, in Mali, and even in the manipulation of the transition in Burkina Faso.
People make a change in Africa. They did it because they didn't think of themselves. They didn't use their talents, their gift, to propose themselves to a position of power. What they wanted to do is actually empower the people. And I think because the people sensed that in those men, they rally around them. That's why they were able to gather people around them. And I think in Africa today, most of our leaders, unfortunately, think only of themselves. And that's why they want to stay in power for a long time. And that's why they're never satisfied of what they have. They want always more, not thinking about the other people. So I think that if we want to succeed as Africans, if we really want to turn Africa upside down, I really believe that we need to think about empowering each other.
Okay, thank you.
Base building and working with other people. But I think, in whatever way we do that and supporting the spirit of Sankara, and because this is such a critical moment in Burkina Faso, it's our responsibility to get out in the streets and to raise consciousness about the revolution that, the revolutionary potential in Burkina Faso, and to show people there that we support them. And I do believe that that Sankara's ideas are very much in the surface. They're very much in, even as you were saying, it's 25 years later, but people are talking about him more than ever. And I think this is extremely significant. And so, just as, we're out in the streets fighting against, the war in Iraq and, Afghanistan, we need to bring this consciousness so that it's not just us who know about this, but that we're sharing these books and talking to people and finding creative ways to connect with revolutionaries and activists in Africa as well.
Thank you very much, Nadia. Omari?
Of French imperialism in West Africa in particular. In that, will that inhibit the revolutionary struggle there? Of course it will. That's the object of French imperialism, is to not allow revolutions. My analogy would be the one I tried to make earlier, and that is a small country, an island as a matter of fact, of 4 or 5 million people, decided they were going to organize a revolution, did so, and have maintained that revolution moving forward for 55 years in the face of the mightiest military, economic, social power in the world today. That's the United States ruling class. So, you can't have an enemy stronger than that, in my book. French imperialism is nothing compared to the United States. That's why I think the leaders in the Ivory Coast, the leaders in Togo, the leaders in Paris organized to get rid of. Remember when the CRS first came to power, there were demonstrations all over West Africa. in support. That is going to happen again. That is going to happen again. And I'm a very confident person in the energy and the creativity of workers and peasants. I don't think, I'm like Sankara in that sense. I'm very optimistic. French imperialism will oppose any revolutionary struggle anywhere, and not just West Africa. Chad is not in West Africa, right? I know a little bit about the geography. They do it there. They do it there. There are more French troops in Africa than any other country, imperialist country.
The only foreign bases for France are
that is correct.
in Africa, not any other.
There's a place in the world they used to call French West Africa, right? And they still think it's French West Africa. So the problem is, can we organize a movement strong enough to do what we need, that many of us in this room thinks need to be done? That is, make a revolution. When it's going to come, I don't know. If I knew that, we'd probably all be living in a much better world. But there is a better world that's possible. And that's when the masses put their thing on. Think about Cuba every time you think about, can we do it? That's what I urge you to do. Think about Cuba. Give some serious thought. How did they do it? They didn't do half steps. They took a revolution in the face of the mightiest imperialist power. The U.S. invaded them, right? The U.S. sent mercenaries, right? They sent poison cigars, poison swimsuits to kill Fidel. They did everything. 55 years later.
It does not die. That's the secret. That's the only.
Arrive at the logical conclusion that there is never going to be any Burkinabe revolution, Senegambia revolution, or Grenada, or even here. The only solution to our problem is the African revolution. That way, they're not going to come back and kill Malcolm like they did, or Thomas Sankara. You know, and one of the mistakes that we've been making, look at it just right now in Burkina. The people rise up and struggle, and we allow the most unreliable sector in our society, the African petty bourgeoisie, to come and hijack this thing. It happens everywhere, every time. And what they do, they turn around and slaughter everybody that was in unity with Sankara. You know, they did it with Lumumba. I can go on and on and on down the line. So the African revolution is the solution. And we have to stop thinking that the peasants are illiterate or the workers are illiterate or things like this. Yeah. Like the example that you just giving, brother. Cuba. If it wasn't for the ordinary people, you know, like they would have slaughtered all of them. So the power lies in the hands of the people. We have to start respecting the peasants and the workers and give them a chance. Look at 50 years. Who were the presidents and the ministers in Africa? All of them went to college, you know, with all due respect, because we need our colleges too, and people to, you know, to be scientists, agronomists, and things like that. But look at them. Did we ever give a chance to any peasant or a working class product in this society? No. So this is the thing, you know, they hijack this thing, and we have to stop allowing them to hijack the revolution. The same thing is going to happen in Burkina. You watch and see. Okay. Because they're already accepting, you know, like this, you know, lavish and criminal salaries, you know, just like Kampoore was doing. So the African revolution is the solution.
Okay, thank you.
The future of Thomas Sankara idea in Burkina Faso in the next 10 years, given the new rising political landscape.
Okay.
Burkina Faso in February. I would like you to let those Sankarist party leaders know we're really disappointed. We're disappointed. We used to be Sankarists. Now we're going to be Sankara again. Let them know we're really disappointed and we want them to do something. If they have to do the sacrifice, do the sacrifice. Because that's what we need to keep his legacy up and shining. Thank you.
The community in the Washington DC metropolitan area.
Thank you, everyone. I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you for the panel being here and clarifying some type of position about Thomas Sankara. And the only thing I would like to say again, the population of Burkina Faso from 0 to 25 is 70% of that population. That means that's the youth thriving in Burkina Faso right now. So it's in our interest to make them know more about Thomas Sankara. Monday, Thomas Sankara will be 66-year-old. We don't believe that he's dead. He's still here. Monday, I'm inviting everyone to go on YouTube, to go on Google. Google his name. Show it to your kids. Show it to your environment. It's good for you. It's good for your kids. It's good for the country. It's good for the world. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the panelists and for every invited guest here. I believe we all have a love for Africa. That's why we're here. My question is, I strongly believe in the philosophy and idea of Thomas Sankara. I'm wondering how could his ideas and philosophy be spread all over Africa, especially in my country, Nigeria, where we seem to be very rich, but the people are very poor. So how could his ideas and philosophy spread around Africa? And the second question is anybody taking names or information of members in this room today?
Okay, I'm going to answer to that question. I'm here to support Dr. Naka for everything he's doing for the community. I have a quick question. I would like the professor to describe a little bit the time Sankara was in power. Describe the democracy at that time. Most of the Africans, we came here for freedom. We like the United States. It's a country of freedom. You were free to freedom of speech, to go to a political party and everything. But when we talk about Thomas Sankara, everybody, we talk more about revolution, but he was the president also, right? So I would like the panel to explain to the people here how the people from Burkina Faso, how they were living the time of Thomas Sankara was in power. I heard he was trying to put the power at the end of the people. And what's the meaning of that? It was through political party, or he has, at that time, all the power was on his own end. Thank you.
In terms of reaching, how do these ideas spread? I mean, I was very affected by Thomas Sankara. I mean, I'm not obviously an Africa expert, but I feel very passionately about what Sankara stood for. And the reason is because I had an opportunity to read his books and to see the clips and to hear his words. And that is a very powerful way of spreading his ideas. And it's not just for, people in one country, but people internationally, and he was an internationalist. And so as a socialist, as a person of conscience, as a doctor, I think, it's my responsibility to share my experience having seen these things and learned about these things. They had such a big impression on me. Why wouldn't they have an impression on other people? And to the point where people have decided that they're enthusiastic about becoming revolutionary. So I see that as our biggest task in the U.S. is to organize and to spread the ideas. And his ideas are so universal and timeless. And I think that that's what I'm learning in this venue and having been exposed myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ernest?
Well, trying to combine a couple of the questions and points. When do revolutions start? I would say they're more processes. You can often trace origins earlier. They're in popular struggles. At some point, maybe you take power. Some people call that the start of a revolution, but really, it's a process. Taking power is only a small part of it, taking political power. It's what you do with that to mobilize people, to carry out reforms, to change, to transform society. And if you look across revolutions around the world, they're more or less successful in doing different things, depending how much time they have, the quality of the leadership, and other factors. In Burkina Faso specifically, I mean, there was a question of how people were living. How did Sankara become president? You did come in late because we had this whole party discussion earlier. He was a military officer. He was a captain. So some people, because they saw that, the beret and the uniform, they said, oh, he took power with a coup. No. He resisted in the years before they came to power. The putschists within the military kept pushing him. Take power, take power. And he resisted that, saying, no, the political conditions were not there. First, you had to build agreement among the revolutionary organizations on at least a broad general program of what you would do with it. If you did it too early, it would be an adventure, or would degenerate into something not terribly useful. So the conditions were, he became prime minister under a mixed regime, unstable. The French came in, here's the power of French imperialism, and ousted him, put him under house arrest. And you had an uprising, basically. Students, labor, people went out to demand that he be freed. That created the conditions with the revolutionary groups to actually establish a base. So it was a revolution, in my opinion, in 1983. Some of them were military, some of them were not. There were a bunch of civilian activists there. They had civilian defense committees before the CDRs were formed to participate when the troops from Po came up. They supported the troops. The workers who were working in the power plants organized a blackout to paralyze the old regime, and so on. So it was a revolution. He wasn't elected to office. And part of the, I think disdain for politics, it goes into the history of Burkina Faso. Upper Volta, where you had military regimes that were corrupt, you had civilian presidents who got elected who were just as corrupt. So it wasn't a question of civilian, military, elected, take power by arms. It was something much more fundamental. And that's what they tried to do in 1983. They couldn't continue it beyond a certain point because of certain weaknesses and betrayals from within and pressure from without. The French were there. I mean, look, Blaise married into the family of Houphouët-Boigny. He was one of France's main figures in the area. And I remember after the coup, I saw one of Sankara's aides who went into exile in Ghana. He was an Air Force pilot, Etienne Zongo, you probably know the name. He describes this conversation with Blaise, Sankara, and him, where Blaise, after he got married, well, why can't we have limousines? The pressure from his wife, Chantal, who loved luxuries. And, so they explained to him, no, we're a revolution and we need to be corrupt. Then Blaise left, and Sankara and Etienne looked at each other and said, we have a problem. So the earlier point, is Blaise a revolutionary or not? I don't know. Earlier he might have been, but he became corrupted clearly, and at a certain point he wanted power, and Sankara, I recount this, stepped up to fight against corruption in the final year. Earlier they took care of the old guard from previous regimes. Last year they went after people within the leadership who might be turning corrupt, and public declarations of wealth, all sorts of checks on them. So it became corrupted from within under pressure from French imperialism and others in the neighboring regimes. Those are not good conditions. And I emphasize the internal divisions in the book, partly because as revolutionaries, you sort of know what the French are going to do. You know what the U.S. is going to do. You need to be on guard for that. It's the more insidious stuff is when they find support within, find weaknesses, exploit them, and so on. So that's something the revolutionaries always have to keep out for, without getting paranoid, without turning on each other and instigating witch hunts. But you do have to be careful for the external pressures to end up having an internal influence.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, the main, I don't know where Sankara's ideas will be in 10 years. Hopefully they will be in the body of revolutionary struggles around the world. So I don't predict that. I'm not a predictor. How can his ideas spread around Africa? I think you might be underestimating how far they've gone already. And that, I think, is a very important thing. And I think it will spread. It will spread in Nigeria. It will spread everywhere else. And a couple of people have made the point that Sankara's ideas are not things that are floating around in the air. They're written down. They're in books, speeches, so on. Brother pointed out the videos. You can go on YouTube and find a video. Do it and study it and learn from it. That's what's the test. Now, Sankara ascribes much to the creation of the CD. I don't know how to say it in French. The Committee for the Defense of the Revolution. He put big emphasis on this question as the administrator from the village all the way up to the top to implement the decisions that were in the interest of the masses. That's what he thought of democracy. I've read this book. I'm going to read Harsh's book later. And I don't remember him ever mentioning anything about elections. I don't know if any of you do. But he never saw that there were elections, like the kind that we just had in November 29, as decisive factors. There had been elections, right? A few years earlier, there were elections in Burkina Faso. And what did we come up with? We came up with the same group of gangsters that ran the country before. And you call a spade, as we used to say. So, that's not where the power should be. He invested the power that the masses in motion would change themselves in the process of changing society. That was the thing. And then little simple things, getting rid of the Mercedes that all of the officials wanted to drive around. Cutting the salaries. Well, that really got him pissed off. Cutting their salaries down. Cutting his salary and making it public so that everybody knew what he was doing. Sending his kids to regular school, not to private school in Paris or the United States. And so on and so on and so on. By example, he was proving what needs to be done. And the fact that he had confidence in the masses, see, it's very difficult to have confidence in the masses in the abstract. The masses act. When the hundreds of thousands went into the street to demand that Sankara go, that's action. That's action. And all of us were inspired by that, right? All of us were inspired by that. The fact that there was an election, I think one of the things I read said that there were 70% of the people in the country voted and so on and so on and so on and so on. But we will see. As Malcolm X used to say, time will tell whether these people are going to do anything different than the ones before. Whether it's sugarcoating or not. And we will see the lessons that the young people who have been fighting in the streets over the last couple of years are learning and beginning to implement to solve some of the things that I started my remarks with, the questions that confront us today. I want to just say one last thing. Our problem in the United States is the same problem that exists in Burkina Faso. The construction of a revolutionary leadership that knows where it's going, has the confidence of the masses, and acts on that confidence. Thomas Sankara acted on that confidence. Fidel Castro acted on that confidence. V.I. Lenin acted on this question. And that's what we have to begin to do. And when does a revolution start? I don't know. And I don't care what historian, not to put things on historians, say about it. August 4th, 1983 was the start of the revolution in Burkina Faso. No, it wasn't. What preceded that process, the process of us learning and transforming ourselves into revolutionary activists on the ground is what starts the revolution. That's what we have to look at, and that's the task that are in front of us right now.
Okay, thank you.
Now, to the speakers for the wonderful insights and for the wonderful contributions. I think you will agree with me that they were on point. They were on point. They did not agree on all the aspects, but I really, we've been organizing these conferences, but I really love, the way you were prepared and then everything you were saying, I really love it. And I know that those who are going to watch, this conference will certainly appreciate, your contribution. And so I want to also thank 2 or 3 people before I give my final remarks. We have, when we do our conferences, we need images. We want, because we can be 70, 100 in a room, sometimes less. But, thanks to the media, there are thousands of people who can see what we're doing. And because of, our partners, we are having some connection with people in different parts of the world. So Germain, who is filming, coming from New York again, and we did not have to send him a dime, and then he drove and he came. So thank you, Germain. Thanks, to the team of Ivoire TV. Of course, when we hear, we do not have this, we have different voices. Of course, we need the sound system. And there is a gentleman who has been with us, since, 2011, I believe, and he's from Cameroon, a prosperous business person, an artist, a singer, and then he's one of those professional Africans, right? If you tell an African, come at 3, then no, maybe you meant come at 5. But in his case, even if he said 3, he's going to come at 3. And his name is Guy Fufo. I want him to put out, to. And then I have one of my friends that I call one of my godfathers in the community, professional photographer. And he's been taking our pictures since the beginning. And I thank you all for coming here. I thank you, all of you. I'm really, today is a different. I'm going to try and answer this question in a few. But, it is not easy, to try and organize black people. I've never tried to organize white people. But I know that all my life I've been trying to organize black people. And I know how my people function. So, it is easy for us to be and say, oh, Sankara should have done this. You should have done that. But on a regular basis, we are trying to build a movement since 2007. I can tell you that sometimes we can do everything we can imagine, meet people, spend money, have coffee with people. And when you come to the room, if you're lucky, you have 100 people in the room. But today, 4 days away from Christmas, and I see so many people in the room, and it looks like, beyond the fact that Sankara can mobilize people, it looks like something is happening, not only on the continent of Africa, but also in the African diaspora in the United States. So please, give yourself a round of applause. This morning, some of the things that we messages for him, his name is Christian Mbonde. He sent me like a long message this morning, when you're trying when you hope people are going to come. So you wake up in the morning, the day of the conference, somebody sends you like a long email, and basically the idea is that, sir, I'm not going to show up. And in the email, he was trying to tell me that he's a farmer. He's here. He's a farmer, but that he told me, 2007, when you were doing those conferences in the hotel, some people asked you to put together like a trust fund so that we can do businesses and so and so. In other words, we proposed that to you 2007, we're in 2015, you haven't created a business fund, and then you want to organize a conference. In other words, I am not going to be part of it, I'm not going to show up. But guess what? I saw one quote of Malcolm X that he was saying that one of his mistakes was that, or the mistake of his generation, is that they wanted to organize the people before waking them up. We're looking for a critical mass of individuals. we are looking for a critical mass of individuals. If you get a chance to read Garvey, Nkrumah, and all the leaders, my professor, Dr. Nyang, is here. And sometimes when we see people think that we are so stupid that we don't know what we're doing, even though they know that we went to school. My professor is here, a great scholar, a great African scholar. What else can somebody who does not care about Africa can teach me that Dr. Nyang did not teach me? So we know that we need to create a business fund. But if you call on your friends, and I was telling my friend Stephanie, I said, please look around and count the Ivorians in the room. Who are the Ivorians in the room? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this 4 came, it was very late because he had an issue. But 4 Ivorians in a room where there are more than 50 or 60 people. So that's the difficulty that we are having. So one day, if Nyaka is tired, and the friends of Nyaka are tired, and we say, you know what? We're done with those Negroes. We're not going to try and organize a conference anymore. What is going to happen? There will not be a conference on Thomas Sankara in the Washington, D.C. area. If the Sankara family say, you know what, we're not going to support this anymore, there will not be conference in the D.C. area anymore. We are doing that because here in the United States, we realized that people were not talking enough about Thomas Sankara. That's why we launched that annual conference on Sankara since 2012. Let's see it. We did it 2012. After 3 years, Blaise Compaoré was overthrown because, like us, across the globe, people are organizing everywhere and they're claiming the ideas of Thomas Sankara because his vision is very strong, and we want to contribute, to the spread of the ideas of Sankara and the ideas of all the leaders who stood, for justice and freedom. People can die, people can be killed. People, they're going to try and kill us, but hey, Sankara is immortal. And what we're trying to do is not that we are knocking at the door of immortality, but we believe that we need to do something. That's why we're doing this. So when we come here and pay $500 for hotel room here, for the room, and we put some monies together for people to eat, or we ask somebody to come from New York so that you can stay in a hotel room, it's not because I cannot take that money to go and buy some shoes. No, I don't have many. I have only 2. Yeah, it does not. No, seriously. It's not that I cannot take that money to go and buy some shoes. Yes, but now if you believe that what we are doing seems to be interesting, I was about to be tired. And then the divine put us in contact, thanks to the social media, with some young people, and you don't know what is happening in Africa. The legacy of Thomas Sankara, Omari Musa, I can tell you, I'm not a seer, his legacy and his ideas are going to become stronger and stronger on the continent of Africa. Today, Sankara is more popular than Kwame Nkrumah on the continent of Africa. Today is more popular than Kwame Nkrumah, and I believe that if we succeed, his vision is going to become stronger than the vision of many, because he was a truthful person. He was sincere. And then differently from other people, he decided to give his life. So one day somebody asked me, or somebody said, I saw a Caucasian professor somewhere in Indiana, I don't understand the frenzy about Thomas Sankara. There was a time they were not talking about him, but now everyone is talking about him. He's like the Messiah. I said, sir, you're right. He said, how also? I said, no, the trinity of Pan-Africanism. If Nkrumah is the father, and then Thomas Sankara is certainly the Christ, and then maybe Mandela is the Holy Spirit. If you believe, and then when you compare the three, you know that among the three, the one who decided to die so that his ideas can survive him was certainly Thomas Sankara. So people, we're here for you. We are here for the people who are looking at us. If we become a little bit more serious, because it is time for us to adjust, and it is time for us to become a little bit more serious, and it is time for us in order to light, the light within ourselves, and it is time for us, to increase our level of humanness that Thomas Sankara had, which is about that African collectivism that Sankara claimed or reclaimed beside his socialist ideas, which was what? Burgundy. And then Burkindi, it is that African collectivism that you can see among all the Bantu people in Africa, that even some researchers linked to the Egyptian civilization. This is what we have in common. So in the name of Ubuntu, we need to embody and we need to express on a regular basis the idea to serve, the idea to help, and the idea in order to rebuild our community. So hopefully, next year, when you organize this conference, if you come on time, praise God or thank God. If you come late, we're going to be happy. But if you decide to put a little bit of money for the organization of the conference, or if you decide to contribute so that this conference can be bigger, so that we can have conferences like this in Canada, in Russia, in Nigeria, in Ivory Coast, this is how we can build a stronger movement, so that if Sankara is killed, or if Kwame Nkrumah is killed, or if Nelson Mandela is not there, the movement can survive. But if the movement has to rely on a few, I can tell you that when the imperialists know, they kill those few and the movement is dead. Last thing to tell you so that I can make you laugh and I'll let you go. One of my friends told me, oh, Mr. Nyaka, oh, you are talking against, you're doing all the things, but you don't even know how to swim. And it is true, I can't swim. And he said, white people, they don't go to waste their ammunition. They will take you and throw you in the swimming pool, and then you're going to die. And it is true. So we can be here doing all those things. It takes only one small thing, for people to destroy an organization. So please, if you love Africa, and then you believe that what we're doing is true, please, I want you to become stronger and better than me, so that we can have a more powerful movement within the African community here and across the continent of Africa and across the globe. Thank you very much. And then now, thank you very much, people. So before you leave, the camera person wants to tape you, and then just 1 minute.
Make sure